Hello and welcome to another interview. Today I have Councillor Martin Williams, representative of Coity Ward on Coity Higher Community Council. He is also Deputy Chair of the Council. So, welcome Martin, thank you for doing this interview with me.
Oh, thanks for asking, Luke.
How are you today?
Good, good. Working away, which is always a little bit of a chore, but I get steak and chips at the end of it, so that's my my reward for that. So stuck in a hotel room, looking forward to my steak and chips, but I think I'll probably earn it after this interview.
Should be fairly easy. Right, let's get into this. Give us some background about yourself, not as a councillor, as who you are, what you do, and things like that.
Yeah, 47. I'm a chartered civil engineer. I'm married to Amanda, who you know. Some of you won't know, but Amanda is the borough councillor for Coity. We've got 3 kids. Two of them are football mad. One of them is artistic, loves dancing, loves singing, born performer, I think. And yeah, so as I said, lived in Coity now since 2004. Prior to that, was born and bred in Carmarthen, down in West Wales there, Cardiff University, worked away a lot, met Amanda 2003 and we settled in Coity not long afterwards. Yeah, I've been there ever since. Love it, absolutely love it.
I understand Amanda's actually very local, she's born and bred Bridgend.
Yeah, very much so, yeah.
For years and involved. So when did you first get into politics and what made you stand to be a community councillor?
I think there's two sort of awakenings into politics. I was always, as a teenager, I wasn't quite William Hague, but I was a bit like that, really interested. Watched far too much Question Time and things like that in my sort of mid-late teens. Stood in a couple of school elections, and I would have said then that I was very interested in politics, capital P politics, party politics, that sort of thing. And then, then I grew up a bit, didn't I? And I went to university, I got a job, worked hard at that, got married, raised a family, and you suddenly realise that a lot of that stuff isn't really very important after all. But increasingly, I think there are 2 things coming together really. There was, Amanda and I, from whenever we moved into the village, from quite an early stage, we became quite involved in what was going on there. Coity, as you know, is a very active community. There's lots of things happening from, back then there was a village fete, firework displays, and more recently jamming the castle and Easter egg hunts and so on and so forth. And so we got involved in a small way in the village association and that sort of thing. And in some ways, looking back, I guess it was an inevitability that then I would get more interested in the community council and what the community council could do. But I think the other thing is, and it wasn't just inevitable. I think they increasingly became aware of a number of issues impacting Coity at the time. Coity was being surrounded by development, and it didn't seem as though you can't turn the tide. So there was a lot of development going on. It was clearly a done deal. Park Derwent, Castell, Gather Castell, all surrounding Coity. The prison was expanding. A lot of these things going on, and also a lot of huge traffic problems, which I'm sure we'll come back to again. And it just seemed to me that Coity was having a rough deal. Not so much that the development was there, because loads of friends in Park Derwent, Castell, places like that. Loads of good friends I wouldn't have met otherwise, but I don't think we were getting a good deal off the back of that at Coity. And ultimately, those who, Section 106 stuff, the facilities off the back of the developments that were happening, and ultimately, as those developments happened, you'd see that the slowness in the facilities, the promised facilities coming, other promised facilities perhaps not coming at all, and just a sense of increasing frustration. Something's got to be done. And I think two things clinched it for me. One was when they sold the old primary school. So they sold the site, which you would, yeah. I mean, we can discuss whether they should have kept it on as a stepping stone or a nursery facility for a few years until things were settled down. But they sold it. There seemed to be very little consultation. It was done. It wasn't underhand. It was done in the correct channels, but it wasn't massively publicised. Certainly not locally. And the field went with it. And I wrote to, it was really late in the day. I think I wrote to the community council, not perhaps realising what their powers were and weren't, saying, look, you need to lobby on our behalf. You need to. Have you asked if you can have the village? You can have the whole old field, old school field. Have you asked that? What have you done with regard to protecting the building? Does it, will it be knocked down, or should you? I said it was an iconic building, this sort of thing, and I pretty much rebuffed that it wasn't their job. It wasn't important. They couldn't interfere. That sort of response, and. Yeah, so there was that, and the other thing, so that was perhaps a negative sort of motivation, but the other thing was our colleague Bernard was already on the community council, and he'd been involved in the very beginnings of what's now become our community access plan. Quite how advanced it was at that time, I don't know. I think discussions, and I wanted part of that. I think I had experience and skills to offer in that. I wanted to be part of that. I thought I could make a difference. I hate saying make a difference because it's quite a cliche, isn't it? But there was a real practical difference I could make there. And then there was a vacancy. A long-standing community councillor resigned, and that vacancy came about. And that was fun. So I'd already inquired about co-option, and it didn't happen. So even though I was perhaps politically naive then, and I think Alex might have talked about co-option, I can't remember the circumstances. A councillor resigned, then somehow unresigned after I'd expressed an interest. I'm not quite sure how that happened anyway. And so I said, right, well, I'm going to do this. I remember saying to Amanda long before she'd considered being a borough councillor, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go for it. And I decided the only way to do that was to go straight through the front door. I'd come to conclude that there was no opportunity, no very little prospect of me being co-opted on there. And so, we scrabbled around, found our 10 signatures, called an election. That was interesting. We didn't have a petition then. We weren't super slick. We encouraging neighbours to write to the council, that sort of thing. And by election, won. Two independents, which was good, which is how it should be. And got on the community council, so that's what got me there. So I mean, I guess it was, in summary, it was trying to be an active and contributory resident of the community, but also, at the same time, these mounting frustrations that our voice, firstly perhaps the village, because that's what it was when I first moved in, and increasingly the wider Coity and beyond now, Coity Higher, just our voice wasn't being heard. And I think the two things came together with an opportunity. And so that's what took me to where I am.
You spoke about the field that you said that the community council should take over, and they didn't want to at the time. Is that now the field that the community council is?
No, it's the one next to it. And actually, I don't think it was a matter that they didn't want to. I just don't think they thought to ask. I don't go too much into this because time has moved on, and the field was sold as part of the school plot. I think what my frustration is that it was sold in the knowledge that it could never be developed because it's in a conservation area. So in theory, my argument was that it was therefore effectively worthless from a development potential. It just wasn't considered. I think I was probably a little bit late to it. Having said that, it's now been, there are seven fantastic houses on that site, and the field is a paddock annexed onto one of those. So time's moved on. I just thought at that time there was an opportunity that they again, not even an opportunity. They didn't fight. They didn't fight, and I think that was my frustration. They didn't fight. They didn't ask, they didn't push,
No.
you know, and whether or not they wanted it, or whether or not, you know, whether or not it would ever have happened, they didn't push, they didn't ask, they didn't stand up, and there was too little of that going on at the time.
We are here to speak about your role as a community councillor for Coity Higher, but you're also a councillor on another community council in St Bride's Minor, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. We were briefly colleagues there, yeah.
Yeah, we were briefly colleagues on there. I won't speak to you about St Bride's Minor. I would like to get another councillor from there dedicated.
Yeah, that's fine.
There,
Yeah.
Because you're deputy chair of Coity Higher. I think it's more important that you focus on that on this interview. That's what I'm going for. So, since the last election, what has Coity Higher been up to in the last 4 years now, isn't it?
Gosh, we've done an awful lot. We really have. I think you know, when we got elected, you and I got elected along with our 4 independent colleagues. I don't think we quite saw it coming, did we? I don't think. No. I thought we did. We thought we'd do all right. I didn't think. No, I'm trying to remember back now. I don't think we truly anticipated that we would gain a majority there. No, we hoped we would, you know, but I didn't think we saw a route to that.
But I think it's quite funny. We do have a majority of independent. It's an independent controlled community council, but it's not in a way, because it's one of the few community councils where everybody works together. Yes, we have our disagreements. Yes, we have different opinions on something, not just independents, but the Labour members and the Lib Dem member. We have different opinions, but we all seem to pull in the same direction together to get things over that line.
And I you know, perhaps we can come back to this, but I mean, I genuinely don't think, if you were in the room, whether it's the real room or the virtual room, I don't think you'd know who was who there. I don't think you'd know that. I don't think there's any voting on block. I think the well, not being naive, but I think the discussions are had in camera. You know, they're there in front of everyone, and you know, the deliberations happen in full view. So I don't think there's nothing done in smoke-filled rooms or anything like that. So you know, that's really positive. But going back to what we've done, well, loads. I mean, I'll have to sit down and write a list. I'm probably better at, given that May's coming. But yeah, I mean, the backbone of everything really was the community access plan, and that plan was started about a year before the election, maybe 18 months before the election. But really, the 2017 election, it really gained momentum in the sort of months leading up to that election, and then delivery thereafter. And it's on our website. You can go and have a look. But essentially, the community access plan highlighted or looked at the whole area, Coity, Litchard, Pendray, the whole Coity Higher, which we've got to get used to talking about now, the whole Coity Higher area, and looked at what the access needs were, so where the shops were versus to where the people are, where the doctor surgeries are. I'll tell you now, there's none in Coity Higher, where the chemists are and where the schools are and so forth. So what journeys people make. We consulted with everyone, really, schools, parents, individuals, flyers in the pub and flyers in the post office, door to door. So then we looked at what those journeys were, the modes that were taken, and then prior to the last election as well, we spent a couple of days walking the whole place, looking at where we call them hotspots, but either road safety issues or dangerous things, or just things that discouraged people from taking trips not in their car. So why aren't people walking to school? What would it take for you to walk to school more? What would it take you to walk to the dentist more? What would it, and so on. So we compiled this big document. I can't remember how many pages it is, top of my head, something 77 pages, something like
that, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think I wrote most of the words in there. So yeah, that was a project close to my heart, and that's been our sort of backbone, I guess. Well, certainly the way I've seen it. That's taken, it's almost like a strategic plan. Now I know it's very transfer focused, but we had to have something to hang our hat off, you know, I think, and from that. We worked quite closely with BCBC. Interesting relationship with BCBC that perhaps we'll explore later. But on this, we worked quite closely, certainly to start with, and worked with them to develop funding bids for elements of that plan. So this plan had no bias in it. So it wasn't like, didn't focus on safe routes to school or safe routes linking Coity to Cardiff via Wildman Station. It didn't have any of those sorts of sort of biases. But working with BCBC, we were able to develop a safe routes to school program, which
I think we're losing you a second.
you can see again on our website.
Hang on,
look,
Martin, we're losing your internet a second.
Are you back?
It was you who went, I thought.
Oh, hang on. It was me. It's this hotel, yeah. So where did we get to? You can edit that if you want.
You were on about how it's linked into the Safer Routes.
Yeah. So what we then did, work with BCBC and develop this Safe Routes to School program, and we had 30 interventions on there. And those interventions were things like a pavement on Hale Spencer, modifications to the back of Litchard School into Wildmill, pavements at Hill Symonston, safe crossing points through Coity Village, through Pendray, some in Litchard, a new refurbished path from Great Western Avenue into Pendray, and so on and so forth. And there are some huge frustrations around that, but the long and the short of it is that plan has resulted in the best part of 450 or more £1,000 worth of external funding coming into Coity. BCBC were successful on the back of our plan with as I said, there was a £215,000 or £218,000 bid, which was successful, and then there's a further bid now of a similar value. No, actually, we've been successful for the third time. So there were two similarly sized bids, that's sort of £200,000, and then the latest bid as well. So a lot of what we put in our plan has been delivered. So that's the core of it. I would say that was the backbone of where we started. And then, I think we definitely had this view, and still do have this view, that we're there to try and make life better for those who live in Coity Higher. The next thing I would say that we've been very successful at is asset transfers of play parks. We've refurbished 3 play parks. We've asset transferred and refurbished, one in Great Western Avenue, one in Pendray, and one in next to Coity Castle. Again, we've attracted match funding there from BCBC, so we've attracted the best part of 45,000, I think slightly more, probably £50,000 of match funding there, which we put in equal sums. So we've got 3 brand new play parks there, which we project managed. Been successful in a match funding for the play park in Cllr Martin as well in Litchard. Slightly frustrating there. There's a bit of a land issue and an ownership issue. Had we been responsible for that, it had been built by now, but it's not, but it should be this financial year. So we've done that. We've refurbished our allotments. Another big project we've done, and along the lines of community access, there's a footpath that goes from the top of Hale Spencer in Coity across to the front of the prison. Seems a strange place to put a footpath, but there was an existing footpath there that links up to a footpath then that leads onto the Pines, MacArthur Glen, and so that was the best part of £40,000, which again we had some match funding from BCBC for. So we've gone from a council that was, I think the year that I was first elected in 2016, I think the precept council tax, for want of a better word, actually the budget, because I don't think we had much on top of that, was 56,000, and this year's precept is 106, I think it was 110. But you can see, we've effectively doubled the precept, and the budget is bigger again because we've had some of that match funding coming in. So in each year, in each of the last couple of years, we've had about 20, 30, 40,000 coming in on top of that. So we've really grown, trebled in size really, and I would say tenfold the ambition. But alongside that, a lot of lobbying. We've expressed an interest in taking over the two playing fields, Great Western Avenue and Litchard, and we're in discussions now about the very difficult situation surrounding Litchard Community Centre, which you'll know about, that Owen sort of toss the keys back and shut the doors. So we're in negotiations with BCBC about how best to proceed with that. So yeah, we've done a lot, and there'll be loads of left off that list, as I'm sure you know. Yeah. But in the background, and as you know, I was chairman for 2 terms. A lot of what was going on there, and maybe we'll touch on this later, I don't know. There was an awful lot of backfilling of council processes, systems, governance, if you like, making sure that the clerk and staff had contracts that were fit for purpose, that reflected the roles they did, that were fair, and aligned with national pay structures and so on. There was a lot of work went into that, and a lot of work also has gone on. Hands up, mainly all the clerks' work, but with our support. Making sure that our audits are correct, our processes are correct, our risk assessments and risk reviews and asset registers and those sorts of things are correct. And you don't want to, and we're right sizing the council as well. So we're trying to right size, making sure that the administration is robust enough to deal with a council that's trebled in size. And I don't think that's a lot of hidden work there that will never get really recognised. That's fine. That's part of the job. But that's something else we've done a lot of. I think something else as well is we've become a lot more active and vocal. We ensure as a council that we take part in most consultations, certainly those consultations which we feel that matter, boundary changes, the Local Government Act, for example, planning consultations, but we make sure our voice is heard. We think that's very important, and we make sure we attend actively One Voice Wales. Now, a lot of people won't know this, but One Voice Wales is a little bit like the Welsh Government Association for Community Councils. So it's an association for community and town councils to make sure they have a voice, exactly what it says on the tin, at the national level. And we make sure that we send representatives to the regional committees and national conferences. We had a motion approved there last year before, and we've been recognised that we've won or been highly commended in a number of innovation awards. So we've done a lot of practical stuff. We've done a lot of lobbying, and also I think we've been recognised. I think it's important to be recognised, not just because of it's nice to have a pat on the back, but I think it's more important to put us on the map.
Yeah, well, I think as a council we have done a huge amount in these 4 years, but I don't, regardless of you being there, me being there, or any other councillor, I've got to say none of the work that we get to do would be possible without people like our clerk and our assistant clerk. They carry so much of our water and do so much of the work for us.
Oh yeah,
the council would never be able to function without them. And
I know. Yeah, we're very, very fortunate. But yeah, we're fortunate that those we've got that team there. I think we're also wise enough, if that's the right word, to recognise what we've got. And we, I do hear some interesting stories from other places about perhaps clerks, staff aren't appreciated like they ought to be, and I think it's all an important thing. It's all essential. But you're right to highlight and call out the good work that they do.
Yeah. Well, you spoke about the active travel plan that yourself and Councillor Davis actually pushed, and Councillor Davis did a hell of a lot of work on that, and was
huge credit to Anita, because it was Anita who got it off the ground in the first place, and I tell you now, having only been there a year, but the previous council before 2017 was perhaps, whilst entirely proper, was perhaps as you talked about my frustration earlier.
Yeah.
Perhaps not the easiest place to get things off the ground. Certainly slightly unusual things off the ground.
No, and I think you and Anita put as much work as each other did and done a fantastic job. And Councillor Davis, I suppose, highlighted something that maybe not be immediately aware to us. We've had quite a few tactile pavements put in at crossing points where not normally they'd be there, and somebody like yourself and me probably wouldn't notice that or even think about something like that, but Councillor Davis highlighted those things, and the good work, it's been, a lot of them have been done.
Well, yeah, it's so important, you know, and it's so important to all views are important.
Yeah.
Well, the vast majority of views are important, but seriously, if you've just got one or two people looking ahead, you've only got that narrow field of view, haven't you? You know, metaphorically speaking, and the more people you can engage, then the broader the view. And it's as simple as that. It's really not rocket science. And it, you know, I guess it would have been very easy for us six to just circle the wagons and just say, well, this is what we're going to do, and that's the end of it. But I'm glad we didn't do that. I'm really glad we didn't do that, because, you know, you called out Anita there, but, you know, there are 4 Labour members on the council, and, you know, I consider them all to be valued colleagues, you know, friends and colleagues.
Oh, yeah.
To a greater or lesser degree, and some of those, you know, it's very important sometimes, and I won't name names, but certainly one of them I always sort of, does it pass their test? Now, I may or may not agree, but if they have reservations, then those reservations are worth listening to, because it is very easy to just go ahead with something, particularly if you've got, you know, you've got the backing of your colleagues, and you don't properly consider the consequences, which is exactly what a council should be, shouldn't it? You know, there should be ideas, then those ideas are sort of, you know, those are kicked around, are scrutinised, and then we move forward just to make sure that we're doing as best as possible the right thing.
I think another good thing for our council is we do have a close working relationship with the councillor in Pendray and the councillor in Coity. We get regular updates. Councillor Richard Young, Pendray, is actually on the community council, and does give us a lot of help, and is very receptive to hearing us and passing on things that he's able to pass on.
I mean, it's going to be really interesting. I mean, I think I've seen a difference now, because as some people will know, Richard was the cabinet member for communities, and a lot of what we've been doing was in his portfolio. And yeah, I mean, I think that advice was invaluable. You know, correct and proper advice, of course. Yeah. I'm not sure. Well, I don't know. I've just seen some frustration since Richard's changed, but yeah, maybe that's just personalities.
Keeping on the topic of the active travel plan, we'll move on to Hill Spencer. It was down as a top priority in our active travel plan list, because it is a dangerous road, and we've seen again recently more animals being killed on the road or being hit by cars, and we've pushed since 2017 to really try and get a path put on there so it's safe for people to walk, because some children have to walk on that road to cut through to get to Coity Primary. Sometimes.
It's, yeah, like sorry, I'm just building up a head of steam now. So you keep going, I'll be ready to go, yeah.
So it is a frustration that it hasn't been done. We would all love things to be done like right away, just like that, snap of fingers. But we know sometimes things are a long process. But there have been times where I've seen, because yourself and Anita have been very active with this particular part of the plan as well.
Don't forget Bernard either, you see, because
well.
Bernard perhaps has been less active in the active travel plan, but Bernard's been a long time campaigner on this, you know.
But I've seen you've been to many meetings with the council, not just with the communities or with the highways department, but with the upper echelons of the council leadership as well. And yet it's nothing done. So can you fill us in on where we are to date and what has gone on?
I got to be honest, it feels like we're back at square one. It really does feel like we're back at square one. And, you know, that should, in normal course of events, deflate me, but it doesn't. I do keep telling them, look, that's one of the main reasons I stood. You put a pavement on Hill Spencer, I will go away and your pain will end, yeah? if they want Martin Williams, or Martin Effin Williams, as I've been called a number of times, to go away, put a pavement on Hill Spencer, I can almost, you know, I can almost sign that now. Look, from the day I was elected, I lobbied. I mean, I didn't have a lot of sway in the council then. I was in a minority of one or two in 2016 to 17. So I just lobbied directly. I wrote to people like Carwyn Jones, looked at the council, council being BCBC, and fobbed off. But the original response, the only half interesting response in those early days was, well, get it on your active travel plan or whatever, with community access plan, and that's your best route. Yeah, that's your best route to get it done. And so, I clearly then, that you can see now why I was very keen to get onto that committee, and why I've been very passionate about pushing it. And oh gosh, I lose track of time. COVID's really spoiled things in that respect, but we thought we got it. And there was an almighty cock-up where BCBC's application, this was 2018, was it, or 2019? I forget.
18.
20, yeah, I think it was the 2018 application, but it was 2019 we found out about it. And the words suggested that the funding for Hale Spencer had been approved. There was £218,000 approved. So the words suggested that it would happen. But the drawings, the plans that have been submitted were for the footpath through Litchard playing fields. Now, Litchard playing fields was on our list of 30 interventions, because you extend, if you're there, there's a very narrow pavement on that part of Hale West Place as you go to Litchard Cross, and one of our suggestions was to extend the footpath through Litchard playing fields to just make life easier and safer. However, there was a pavement, there was that alternative, and of the 30, probably number 30, and BCBC used the £218,000 to fund the footpath through Litchard Field. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a good piece of work in its own right. But had that come back to our community council, I wouldn't mind betting that there'd be an overwhelming majority for that money to be spent on Hale Spencer, where there is a real need. And then, of course, I've had a huge frustration with, but 215,000 wouldn't be enough. Well, I tell you now, it's what I do for a living. It's what I've done for a living for, how long? 25 years? I must feel old. But yeah, 215,000 would be plenty of money to put a pavement on Hale Spencer. So anyway, so we had a number, as you said, high-profile meetings or senior meetings with BCBC. Apologies were made by the highest level of councillor. I won't name names. Personal assurances that this would be sorted, it would be the highest priority going forward, and this mistake would never be made again. And so the next phase went through, and we were told, well, look, and again, the next phase was hugely successful. We're very, very proud of it. The crossing points in Coity and Pendray, real tangible difference. I think a few people are a bit grumpy because it blocks their drive a little bit, but ultimately, you can say there's a real difference there that makes a difference to people's mobility. And then the excuses started. Then the backtracking starts. Well, of course, we'd love to put in a funding bid for Hale Spencer, but we don't know who owns the land, you see. We don't know who owns the land, and unless we know that, no bid would be successful. So hang on now. 2 years ago, you put the bid in, and this wasn't an issue. So anyway, so we, the Community Council, agreed to do land searches ourselves. So we take away the excuses. So we had another meeting relatively recently. Well, of course, just knowing who owns the land, that's just the start of it. Now we've got to buy the land. No, you don't. You see, because you own most of the land yourself already. You see where we're going? And then there's talk of drainage, but it's all nebulous stuff. It's all, but there's drainage issues. Explain to me what the drainage issues are. Well, you see, drainage is very complicated. Yeah, maybe, but not to me. It's what I do for a living, yeah. And so you've got all of this, and then but are we talking about a safe route, or are we talking about a community access route? So I don't give a monkeys what we're talking about. People at Coity wanted bloody pavement there before one of them was killed, yeah. and so that's where we are now. We're going round and round in circles, and they're backtracking. And far from being, the being the highest priority, we're really sorry that shouldn't have happened. Of course, we're focused on Hale Spencer. Those weasel words have started now this last couple of months. Well, of course, there are competing priorities within the borough. So you can see the backtracking. What I tell you now, I don't know if you've seen films like Payback, or is it Point Blank,
Yes.
with Lee Marvin? Yeah. All I want is my pavement at Hale Spencer, yeah? And if it takes a change of regime in BCBC to deliver that, then that's what it takes. And if any of my political colleagues from other places are watching this, that's really simple to me. If it takes a change of regime or change of administration in BCBC to put a bloody pavement on what must be one of the most dangerous roads in the county, well, so be it. I'm up for that. So that's the current state of Hale Spencer. The current state, technically, officially, is that they are now reviewing our land searches, and they're going to come back with further proposals. They're looking for budget and so on and so forth. And could the community council possibly contribute to a feasibility design or drainage surveys? But as you know, we're £100,000, £150,000 community council. They're £250 million. Yeah, it's frustrating, but we will get there. And as I said, and if it takes a change of administration in BCBC to get what should be an automatically sensible thing to do, and so be it.
Okay.
So that's where we are.
Great. Right. Sorry about that, everybody. I had a little accident with my seat. It collapsed on me, so I've had to change my position.
It was the shock of Hale Spencer, wasn't it? It made you literally fall off your chair.
You make the chair collapse. So it's broken now. So I'm a little bit off track. So I'm trying to regather where we are. We discussed Hale Spencer. There's a lot of news there. I think a lot of the residents of Coity, Park Derwin would be interested in hearing on that and where we are on the council. So my next question. Recently, we have touched on this with the community councils. There's been a few community and town councils that have had some problems which can hit public confidences, even in good community councils. Hearing what's happened in other places within the borough and further afield, even if you're a good community council, public confidence can hit. And the community councils are the only governing body that can actually be disbanded on a public vote, not like a county council or a government or anything like that. Community councils can have a public vote called to disband the council completely, not just get rid of the members, but get rid of the council completely. And there would be some people out there who say yes, it's extra money that we'd get back, or we'd save each year on our council tax. Coity has had an excellent record and awards, as you've mentioned, from One Voice Wales. Are community councils worth the money they get? I suppose that's the question.
Yeah, I think Coity Higher Community Council is worth the money. We are, our Band D precept, very technical term there. The average council tax for a Band D house for Coity Higher is just over £28 a year. And we have, I've just listed off all those things we've done. Those things wouldn't have happened otherwise. And as a direct result of what we have done, the 11 of us, plus our clerk and assistant clerk, have done, has brought in somewhere in the region of £650,000 worth of external funding. So if you look at it on that basis, we've got in more external funding directly than we've raised in council tax. So I think by that measure, it is very good value for money. And I think also that if you disbanded it, the money that we have raised and spent over that period, and I have to double check the numbers, 350, 400,000 maybe at the top end. I don't know where that would go otherwise. I you know, it's little slices that make a big pie, and I don't know what difference that would have made, or whether it could have made the same difference spent differently or saved differently, because some people would have wanted to spend, some people wanted to save, some people might have done something collectively as residents, you know. But I do think it offers good value for money. However, this is, I mean, again, this is Coity Higher directly. However, you know, it's for people to decide that. You know, there'll be elections in May. People may decide that that they want different people to run their council. They may also decide at some point in the future that actually, you know, they don't consider £28 to be good value for money, and that's for people to decide. I was one of those people, you know, prior to March 2016, and I think therefore it's extremely important that we continue as a council to demonstrate our value for money. And I think that's important. Value for money is an interesting concept. I don't think it's just a matter of having the lowest, I'll say, council tax. I know some of my independent colleagues elsewhere would get annoyed with me about that. They say, no, it's a precept. But I don't think it's just a matter of having the lowest precept, because you touched on it earlier, but I'm not going to elaborate. There are community councils with lower precepts or similar precepts to us that do far, far less. And and there is an argument that says, well, if you're doing so little that actually 30–40% of your budget is spent on your clerk, well, I think those, you know, you might not be spending much money, you might not be costing people much money, but what are you actually achieving other than paying the wages of someone? And I think those are very interesting questions to be had. So I'm not advocating suddenly doubling our precept or anything like that, but I think there's a cost and value equation to be had, and I think Coity Higher is certainly the right side of that cost and value equation. Now, a wider point, I'm not going to be drawn. Those of us who are town and community councillors, and those of us who have an interest in the sector, will know that of the 20 community councils, town and community councils that cover our county, there are some which have been in the media recently, some quite high profile cases that frankly make me cringe. I don't know how those councils got themselves into those positions. And yeah, you're right. I think they cause us all embarrassment, and they do, you know, undermine the sector, or risk undermining the sector. All I can say is, I firmly believe that town and community councils are where, particularly in these times of, is it austerity anymore? I don't even know if it is austerity anymore, whether it's just these new straitened times, that the prevailing sort of view is that principal councils are going to have their budgets continually cut. That I think it's essential that you have a thriving town and community council sector to deliver the services in novel ways that tier one councils can no longer do. And also, I think it's important, particularly because we can tailor what services are required according to our local knowledge, our hyper-local knowledge in a sense. So we would know, for instance, that the needs of Coity village differ from perhaps parts of Pendray, and we equally we know full well as well that there's a strong volunteer base in one part of the community council area, but there's a less strong volunteer base elsewhere. So you can work with them, to pick litter or to cut greenery on footpaths, whereas in other places you can't do that, and you're going to have to perhaps employ contractors. So I think it's that local knowledge and ability and fleetness of foot is really, really important. We can procure things cheaper. It's a curious development that Hillmire in Play Park, we got a budget to refurbish that, but BCBC may well have to do it and we've been warned that it might cost more than we can procure it for. And we've seen that a number of times because of Welsh procurement rules and OG rules and those sorts of things. So huge advantages to town and community councils. But yeah, I probably haven't really answered the question there. I don't want to be drawn on the details of things I don't fully understand. But yeah, I think there are some very good community councils, some very good town councils. I would say this: I think Bridgend Town Council is very well run. I know people on there, but not just the councillors. I think it's the good governance there, robust governance, and I think we've got that too. St Bride's Minor, well managed, good governance, robust. Three very different councils there. Three councils serving their communities well, I would say. But then there are others, it's all a bit embarrassing. Sorry, I don't know how to conclude this other than I think people need to take and I wrote a piece in the Buddy. I'm a bit of a columnist now. I don't know if you know that, but I wrote a bit in the Buddy, and I want no spoilers. But the September issue will discuss what I think is the essential acts that people need to seek out their councillors. There are 54 BCPC councillors. There are 230 town and community council seats, something in that region. Certainly more than 200. Do people know who they are? Do people know what they do? Do people know what they're doing? And I think whilst as councillors we need to go out there and we need to tell people what we're doing, and as councillors we need to do that. I think people need to be more curious as well. Who are these people and what are they doing and what are they doing for my 28 quid a year?
Yeah, I really do think community councils are good. They're good when they work, and I think they can only work if residents keep on top of their community councillors and the community council as a whole. Go along to a meeting when the pandemic is not here. They hold meetings and they're open to public at any point. Even through when they do them virtually, you're allowed to attend a community council and listen to what's said. You're even should be allowed to ask a question. There should be sections set aside for residents to ask questions. We work well in Coity Higher because we've got quite a vocal community, especially in Park Derwin. There's, especially on social media, there's a strong community voice there, and I think we work well because we listen to that community voice, not just Park Derwin but Pendrain, Litchard as well, so we can see what the community actually is need or what's bothering them at that point, so we can see if it's something we can address, then we will address it. If not, we can pass it on to our local councillors or even further up the chain to the council itself as a community council. But I think residents need to be more informed about what community councils do. Get involved with it. You don't have to stand or be a community councillor, but get involved with it. Speak to your local community councillor. Speak to the clerk. They're there to listen. They're there to help you.
Just find out, as you said, there's a spectrum there from chucking your hat in and becoming a councillor, or at least seeking to become a councillor. Even just look at the website and find out who represents you. Even to that. But just let's build that awareness. And what you're doing, Luke. I mean, starts from small acorns, isn't it? But it helps to build that awareness. And I don't think anyone else is doing that. But on that note, I mentioned St Bride's Minor there, and a well-run council, ambitious, don't know, but well-run, yeah. And I was supporting someone in a by-election a couple of years back, and knocked the door. There's an election today. No, and furthermore, I didn't even know we had a community council, and that person has lived there for 25 years. And I've gone. I would say nothing shocks me. I think that's a lie. I always say nothing shocks me, but that's not true. I'm increasingly shocked. It's become a councillor. I'm increasingly shocked. Yeah.
I think residents in Coity Higher will be more aware there's a community council simply because we have now, in the last year or so, started putting out a leaflet quarterly of what we're actually doing, keeping them informed, what we've done, what will be coming up, and I think that gets more notice. People will see it. It goes through their letterbox. It gets delivered.
And you know, people keep them. I've had phone calls, and I say, well, if you don't mind me saying that, where did you get my number? Not because, you know, don't bother me. So I was probably using your leaflet, and I've kept that. And it's strange to me because perhaps in my world, I just go, oh, that's nice, read it, and then chuck it and recycle it. But people do keep these things, so it's really important to communicate in different ways. Yeah.
Right, so moving on from that, after speaking to Councillor Alex Williams of Penprisk last time, he told us about the boundary changes and how we know Coity, Litchard and Pendray will be represented by 3 councillors at the next election, instead of having an individual councillor. How does that affect the community council? Does that change? Because for the last few years, the last 10 years, Park Derwin, Tremorcastell, Castell has increased Coity's population to that of Litchard's or even higher, but yet has only got 2 representatives on the community council.
Yeah, I think
Litchard has got more than double that.
Yeah. I mean, this was in my in both my manifestos. It's a posh word for my leaflet, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, that's something I highlighted at both times I stood for election. And Coity had 2, Litchard had 5, and Pendray had 4. And I think if you looked at a true balance, I think Coity should have about 45% of the representation now, because of all the houses within it. Now, as far as I'm aware, the community boundaries are a matter for BCBC, and now that the borough boundaries are agreed, and we can talk about that in a minute, because I say agreed, I don't think anyone locally particularly agreed with them, but the BCBC can now conduct a community review. I hope they don't follow the Boundary Commission's lead and have a single ward of 11 or thereabouts councillors. I hope that doesn't happen. I would prefer to see 3 wards, Litchard, Pendray, Coity, albeit with different boundaries, to allow parity. I would prefer that. I think that allows a better connection between those who live in the wards and those who represent them. I think if you've got 11, maybe more, because the ratios are such that, St Bride Minor and Garrow, I think I've got 13, haven't they?
Yeah.
I think St Bride Minor certainly got 13 with perhaps half the population. So I think it goes against the grain, but I think we probably do warrant a couple of extra councillors on Coity Higher. But I think if you've got 11, 12, 13, all representing one big board, very easy for a couple of them to hide, isn't it? Yeah. Alison and I can't hide when there's only 2 of us, and that goes back to the borough thing as well. It was possible, and it's a real mystery as to what's going on there. Yeah, reduce the number of councillors in BCBC, that's fine. Arguably BC was overrepresented compared to other councils. No particular issue with that. But what they did in Coity Higher, I don't understand why. Because when I went to a briefing at the outset, they said that the aim and the ideal situation would be, is it 51 we're dropping to now? They say 51 single ward councillors, yeah? And so you've got a direct link. That person represents these people, and there's no hiding, there's no messing around. It's there, and they either pull their weight or they don't. You can clearly see what's going on, and so I thought that was the direction of travel. They've now concluded that for whatever reason it's too difficult to make 3 equal wards of Pendray, Litchard, and Coity. I mean, we wrote to them twice. Talking about consultation earlier as community council, we suggested some adjustments to the boundaries that could create parity. They wouldn't have it, and I think we even wrote to the minister as a final a final attempt to get that. BCBC did, I believe, and I think the individual political party groupings in Bridgend may well have done that. So there you go. I think a 3 councillor ward in for the whole of Coity Higher. I think if you live in certain parts, you might think that's good, because maybe you're not being well served by your current councillor. I think if you live in other parts, you go, well, yeah, what's that Lizzie so and so over there doing? Because I only see one of mine working hard, and so I think it's a shame we're losing that one-to-one relationship. As I said, I hope BCBC don't follow suit, but we'll see what happens. I'd say that electoral services do seem to be pretty sensible, but let's see. Maybe they'll conclude that it's too difficult. But equally, at the same time, they're carving a Brackler along random lines. You see, so what they're doing on one hand is saying Brackler isn't right. You've got 4,000 households or 4,200 households with 11 councillors or 4 councillors at BCBC level. We don't think that's right. It's not appropriate. Therefore, we'll carve it up randomly. Yeah, it's random, isn't it? Just to make parity. But yet at the same time, they're creating another Brackler in Coity Higher. And you know what I said a few minutes ago, that I'm not usually surprised, but well, yeah, I am usually surprised, and this is another one. But it'll work. It'll be made to work, won't it?
Well, but they're doing the exact same thing in Pencoed. As Councillor Williams said, they're blending all that together. So if Brackler's not working as one lump and you're carving it up, why do it at least 2 more times within the county? It's
important to say, I'm not saying that Brackler doesn't work, but clearly they think it doesn't, otherwise it wouldn't change it, would they?
No.
And it goes completely against what they told us at the very beginning, that the ideal was a single, would be 51 single council wards. Very technical question, this. But I just think it's better. I just think it's better that you have a one-to-one or a one-to-one relationship between councils, councillors and wards. It's better accountability, and
nowhere to hide.
Well, Amanda works very hard. I know the work Amanda does, and people see what they get in. I won't cast any sort of on others in neighbouring places, but it's obvious. Yeah, it's obvious.
And to a community council, it's obvious as well from reports we receive every month.
Yeah, I think the other thing is, Alison and I, if something comes in, I'll say, I'll pick this up, or Alison might pick it up, and when you've got 11, what's going to happen? Are we all fighting over the interesting case and ignoring the hard but unsexy case? You know what I mean? I don't think it's ideal.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought I'd be talking about this 5 years ago, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, we can make our representations, we can reply and respond to consultations, but ultimately a decision is made, and we have to live with that, and that's what we're going to do.
So what are your plans for the next election, which is less than a year away now?
Yeah, it's a lot of time to think about that, isn't there? It's a lot of time to think about that. I hope that, well, it depends. If there's no pavement on Hale Spencer by the next election, as I previously said, I'll put all my energies into changing the administration of BCBC. Simple as that. They haven't. I've seen nothing. I've seen nothing that. Two things, without being too committal. I've seen nothing in my dealings with BCBC that gives me great confidence. I think Alex talked about in bringing in consultants at an early stage.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily start with consultants, but I think the sentiment's the same. I think that we'd have to have 100 days of bring out your dead. You've got 100 days to tell us what's going on here, and then get stuck into the period of change, top to bottom change. Now, whether that's as a councillor or whether that's enabling others to stand as councillors, that's something I've got to decide over the coming months. As for Coity, I really want to continue the good work there, and I want to encourage others. So I will be doing all I can to make sure that we have a thriving, independent-led Coity Higher Community Council after May, and I'll be doing all I can to ensure the same is true in BCBC. So Not quite the answer you wanted, but
No,
yeah.
I was hoping there would be a Kramer versus Kramer situation with you going up against your good lady wife in Coity. That would be
I,
good.
I I don't like losing, so
No,
I don't like
I
losing.
don't think you'd stand a much of a chance.
No, I'll be fully supportive of but clearly Amanda if she wants to stand. But yeah, I want change in BCBC. BCBC needs change. It needs fresh thinking. It needs to stay. It needs to say no a lot more to some people and yes a lot more to others. And BCBC doesn't, as far as I can see, work for the people it should. And look, I'm sure there'll be whales in it. There'll be whales of upset in Angel Street, but I think there's some real cultural problems there that need to be addressed. And frankly, 20, 25 years it's been in existence. 21 of those has been with the same party, and I make no particular bones or comment on the big political P stuff. But that can't be right. There needs to be fresh thinking. And what I want to do in Coity Higher, I want to make sure that we continue where we left off, but importantly, make sure that it doesn't become stale, and make sure that from May 22 for the next 5 years, there is plenty of new thinking in there too. Yeah. But I think it's very important that residents, independent of political party, are making up the bulk of that council, because I think we've proven that can be successful. Am I standing or not? Is that what you said?
Yes,
no, we'll think about that. But whether I am or not, I'll be in the mix. I'll be in the middle. Yeah.
Somewhere. Going off community council at the moment, you spoke earlier about the things you've done in Coity, particularly jamming the castle. Now, for the last 2 years, you haven't really been able to put that on. Will it be returning next year if the pandemic allows?
Discussions started on the weekend. Yeah, discussions started on the weekend. It's something we love doing. None of us are getting any younger, but it's something we love doing. And you know what? Maybe that 2 years break has recharged the batteries a bit. I remember saying to someone, no one in particular, just thin air, I think it was. I said, I think we could do 10. And I think we could do, and we did 10. And then when we did the 10, I thought, we'd do some more. And then COVID came, and we were all a bit tired after the 10. But yeah, discussions started on the weekend, yeah, I'd love to see it return. But they were when we started it, and then when we formed Coity Festivals a year or two later, there were 8 families. There were 4 families who were very closely involved, who formed that, and we've all got to be of the same mind. So I don't want to bump anyone into it. I don't want to pressure anyone into it. I would love to see it return, and I'm sure we will see something returning at some point.
Maybe some of the newer people to the area, not just Coity but Park Derwin, contacting yourself saying, I want to be involved somehow.
Exactly, that. And it's going to sound flippant, but it's really not meant to sound flippant. Do something yourselves. Because, it goes back to this, we were talking about Anita and I, and, the diversity of thinking and ideas. I mean, what Coity's been really good at is when it's been at its best, there's lots of people doing lots of things. So, if it doesn't happen again, I hope it does, but if it doesn't happen again, well, maybe something new will emerge. And I think that, that'll be really good. You look at Coity, we've got Pride in Coity, which one of the residents does, which is really, the sort of environmental group pick litter and that sort of thing. Well, that came from left field. If we'd have had a central committee deciding what good ideas, we probably wouldn't have thought of that, So, we're always open to offers of help. But equally, as I said, I don't want to be flippant, but if someone's got a good idea, just go and do it. If they want to hand out to buy the castle, I'll help them out with that. But equally, just go and do it. And that's the beauty of Coity Higher. It really is. I mean, we've just got groups of people who just do stuff, and it's really good, really good. I mean, I can't imagine any other villages or communities who just say, do you know what, let's let's have a rock festival or a pop festival, and let's just do that, and then we put it on the map, and people will come from, people from London, people from overseas come in, and oh yeah, we'll do that, yeah. It's just, that's why I love this place I live. I mean, it's not my hometown, but it is now. It's fantastic.
And you said if you've got an idea, just do it. But
yeah,
not always as simple as that, because as I know myself, as you know what, I'm currently trying to get people involved with helping with, hopefully in maybe next summer, or even as Alex, as another councillor suggested, in 2 years' time, setting up a Bridgend Youth Olympics. Now, I've got the idea, but how to do it is a different matter to me. I don't know where to start. That's why I've asked, like Councillor Alex Williams, I've asked Amanda, has offered 3 years ago to help, but it all went a bit by the wayside because of my family problems and things like that. Since then, but
we've just got to make it happen, Luke.
Yeah, but since the pandemic and with people being shut in, it actually seems a better idea than it did 4 years ago, 5 years ago when I first had the idea. Now, we, as a community as a whole, we've been separated from each other for 12, 18 months nearly. We're just slowly getting back now, but it's still not fully there. And I think something like this, especially geared towards children who had suffered a lot during the pandemic, as a county as a whole, would be good. An Olympics held over a couple of days, so every child who wants to be involved can be involved in some way. It doesn't have to just involve sports. You could do it, somebody reporting social media, children doing the reporting on social media, doing the interviews with the help from people like Bridge FM or something. So it doesn't just focus on the activity side of it, but because I know there's a lot of kids out there who don't like doing sports but like watching it, or
you're almost like a hybrid, not unlike the Eisteddfod in some ways, but yeah,
well, it's something they've been doing in Alberta in Canada for the last 40 years, going on 50 years now, and it's just grown and grown and grown. They have a senior Olympics now since then. It started off as a normal Olympics, and they have a youth Olympics and a senior Olympics, or they call it the Alberta Games. And every year, 1 year it's summer, 1 year it's winter. They can do that there. We unfortunately don't have the snow.
Sign me up now. I mean, here we are on camera. Sign me up. I know we've talked about this briefly before. Sign me up. Let's do it, and we'll get your job. Your job is to pull the people together. Yeah. If you pull the right people together, we'll make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it would be good, and it's something that could grow.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Grow, because it doesn't just have to be about that. You can have a fun day. You can have sports clubs advertising themselves down in the things, and any money that's raised can go into the grassroots youth sports, especially with the possibility of pitch fees going up.
Don't start me on that.
I'm not going to get started on that, but what I'm saying is
don't start me on that.
Money can go towards these clubs and that to help.
No, it's a great idea, and it's just the power of positive thinking. Let's do it. Jamley Castle was an idea once, and now it's raised, God knows, tens of thousands of pounds. So.
Yeah. Okay, then. That's all about the community council. Now, me and you been going back and forth on do we discuss BCI or not, and you said today let's discuss it. So.
Well, I'm happy to talk about anything really. It's a fire away.
You said that. I didn't want to. This is me now. This is not Martin or anybody else.
Yeah.
I didn't want to bring things like this into the discussion because I want to highlight the good work that community councils and councillors can actually do. But I know there's been some questions asked, and I think. And Martin said today, come on, let's do it, let's get over it. So can you give us some background on Bridgend County Independence?
Well, Bridgend County Independence is a group of like-minded people, independent of party politics. Some have never been of a party. Some have previously dabbled in party politics, but felt it wasn't for them. But the fundamental thing that binds, if that's the right word, unites them is the feeling that party politics has no place in local government. Certainly not tier one councils, and absolutely not community councils. And we've all seen councils where if there's not, even if it's not whipped, there is definitely party discipline and single thinking and group think and that sort of thing. And where it came about, I hadn't long been elected. I'm not going to name any names because it's not for me to name people, but I was approached by wasn't a town councillor then, but someone who had an interest in doing something similar in the town council. And we had a number of conversations and what it started with was look, the parties, and I think Alex talked about this as well, didn't he? The parties have a massive advantage when it comes to fighting elections. They've got the organisation, they've got the money, they know how it works. Yeah, they know what forms to fill in, they know what to put in your leaflet, not what. Yeah, and so you're independent. And I found this when I first started. You start from scratch, and first of all, you've got to learn how to call an election, then you've got to know how to be nominated, and if you don't put an imprint on the bottom of your leaflet, you risk the police coming to your door, and they will, and they will, so it was a support group, for want of a better word, for people who wanted to stand for election, but perhaps either felt they'd be picked off by the parties, because we've seen that happen, or they just simply didn't know how to negotiate and navigate their way around the bureaucracy. And so that's where it started. And just before the 2017 elections, or 6 months before, there was that infamous stone bridge photo where we had a number of us were there at the very beginning, which then grew into a larger group of independents. And we were all completely disparate, but as I said, some from parties, some from none, some who hadn't really met each other. I don't know what I don't think any of them, I don't know what they stand for on Brexit or Trident, or, I think basically they're good people. But I don't know where they stand on some of the big political issues. But what I do know is that they were all motivated by wanting to make a difference in their communities, but not as a party. And so that's what it's all about. And of course, in the run-up to that election then, which was then called Change for Bridgend, because we wanted to bring change for Bridgend, simple as that, do what it says on the tin. Well, of course, then you've been criticised then. But and this is why, this is what made it was almost self-fulfilling. Well, of course, as a group of independents, you can't have any policies, can you? Well, we can actually, because I can't remember, I forget how many people coalesced around that. Was 20 something candidates that sort of stood under our banner. So, we did manage to find policies that we could coalesce around. Oh, well, that means you're a party. Well, it's not, because we're not a party, are we? We never have been, and there never would be. The only advantage to being a party is that you get your name on the ticket, on the ballot. We're not that. We just prove that at that time you can work together, and you can find policies that you can coalesce around and agree around. And because then you need a website or a Facebook page, and you communicate your policies. And like any communication strategy or group or any group affiliates or whatever you want to call people, you're there for a purpose, aren't you? And so you highlight what you think is wrong, and you try and put an alternative view across. But I think it's very important, and there's a big common misconception. I don't think you should look at, anyway, about a year later, they changed names to Bridgend County Independence to better reflect where people stood, because there are people up in Garrow, people up in Ogmore Valley, Valley's Gateway. that's the word for it, isn't it? And
Yeah.
all over the place, and it, didn't feel that Bridgend was too Gentile centric, and the name changed, and that's it. There seems to be a lot of mystique and mystery around it. That's it. That's as simple as that. And yeah, some people find it a bit pointy. And some people like it very much, and some people say, "Oh, you're right-wing fascist or something." Well, I'm certainly not that, and most of the people I associate with certainly are not that, and I wouldn't associate them if they were. It's complete nonsense. I think it's changed things. I think it's turned things upside down a bit. I think I'm a chartered engineer. I'm not known for my rebelliousness. That's not a profession that's known for being a rebellious, rabble-rousing profession. But I do like, as I'm getting older, let's upset the status quo. Let's change things. Let's turn a few tables over, and let's disrupt and deliver change. And that change is essentially trusting people and enabling those people to stand for election, and then trusting them to make a difference when they're there. And I know we've proven that in Coity Higher. Coity Higher is not BCBC, but what we have proven is that this, because we didn't know each other very well, Luke, and I knew
we actually met because of change.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't really know what your views were on minimum wage, or, as I said, Trident, or
you still do.
whether exactly. And I wouldn't ask. I wouldn't ask because it's unimportant. And what is important, that you've got the right of your Olympics thing now. Some the contributions you make in the community council, and your judgment, those things matter, and what motivates you matters. And you and anyone, that's what matters to me. Are you a good person? And are you well motivated? And that's what matters to me. But that's what it's about. And of course, it's kind of, some people don't like it, do they? Because sometimes it's been a bit pointy, and sometimes too pointy. I don't know. It depends who you ask, doesn't it?
You see a lot of comments. Well, you all work together, and you all think the same thing. We don't. Me and you have argued a few times over different things and different views on things within things. We certainly don't vote things the same way. If we agree, yes, but generally our council will pull in the same direction anyway. The whole of the council, the Labour members, the Lib Dem member, the Independents, we all seem to be heading in that the same direction of doing things together to better our community. And I've got no problem with any party or things like that, but BCI have been criticised for what's been termed toxic politics, and in the beginning there was a bit of spikiness, I think it's called. It was getting yourselves known out there, getting your message aware, and it sometimes from not just BCI, and BCI members have done this. I'm one myself. In the past I have commented, but I've never gone into the personal. I've criticised councillors, I've criticised policies, but I've never taken it to the personal. There are some people out there who do get drawn into that, unfortunately, not just on BCI side, but on the other sides as well, from everybody. And I don't like it when it gets personal, and it should never become a personal matter. Criticise the way people work as councillors, criticise policies, that's fair enough. And I think we, as BCI members, got caught up in the early days too much of the social media side of it, and arguing started going back and forth between not just members of BCI and councillors from other parties, but ordinary people as well. And yes, it is wrong, it is out of line, but it's not just one-sided. I've been told it's one-sided, that it comes all from BCI, and I admit there are times when I've criticised councillors and I've criticised policies, but if you criticise a policy, oppose a policy, that is not toxic. That is just saying, well, we don't agree with that regardless of the thing.
Yeah, I think... No, sorry, I interrupted.
No, I don't agree with... It's like the last election. BCI did put policies up of what they would do. I didn't agree with them all. I wouldn't have voted for them all. Some I did like. And if I was a county council at that point, if they were coming to it, would be what would be best for the residents of my area. And that should be the only focus of every councillor. Not or what's best for the county.
And in that situation, as we are in Coity Higher, we would have worked, I presume, and it's some good work to change those or fettle those policies to make them work. And then ultimately, if they couldn't be made to work, then you vote as you see fit.
Yeah, and this is my argument with party politics at this level. That it should, nationally, yes, you need party politics. There's no other way for it. But locally, it should be about what's best for your residents and best for the county, not what does your party want you to do.
I sat in a
and it's not just one party; it's all parties that decide. Well, this is the way we want you to vote or decide. Then that's the way you do it. If not, we're going to rethink about who we're going to stand at the next election.
How do I say this without? Look, I'll just have to say it, won't I? Because I don't want to criticise people. I know it would be personal.
No.
I was on one council and we had a co-option. Narrows it down. And I can't remember exactly the circumstances, but there was a Labour candidate who didn't get voted for by another Labour candidate, and a sitting Labour councillor. That was it. A sitting Labour councillor abstained because there were two Labour candidates for co-option. I think there was certainly one Labour candidate, and they abstained because they felt they didn't know enough about that candidate, which I felt was reasonable. And a senior colleague of theirs on that council said, well, this will be discussed in the next branch meeting. I sat there going, what the hell is this? Is this a Sopranos or what? Because that's what it felt like. And I just thought, well, really? Yeah. And so, don't say it doesn't happen. No. But, to go back to the whole point is, sorry, with an email pop up. I was a bit nervous then in case I pressed the wrong button.
Hang on a minute, your internet's going again. I think his internet's gone.
People, able.
You're frozen, Martin. Well, until we get him back. He's back.
Sorry, my internet. What happened? I had a work email and I had a work email and it just made everything go wrong. So BCI, whatever you want to call it, supporting people to navigate their way through the election process, providing support when advice. If someone says to me, I wouldn't offer advice. No. If someone came to me and said, what should I do in this situation? I said, well, I think this. Should I have said that? You probably shouldn't have said that. What shall I do now? Well, this is what you probably want to do now. But also I think it's a very important thing where's the opposition to the administration in BCI and BCPC? I don't really see it. Who's pointing out the flaws originally in the bin contract? The fact that the penalty points would, they weren't levying penalties in line with the penalty points. Who's pointing out these things? Who's pointing out the 500% sports pitch increase? Who is doing that? And I could talk about a lot of things along those lines that cause a great deal of upset. But of course, if you're pushing out these policies and they're just happening, and you've got full control of your council, and it's just happening, and it's a fait accompli, well, someone needs to point these things out. And if that is toxic politics, well, I'm very sorry about that. But the public have a right to know what's going on, and an administration should expect to be challenged. And I've seen some posts recently, and it's very direct now. It's almost like a Cold War.
Yeah.
I've seen a BCI post yesterday which questioned the efficiency of paying grants. Today you see a Labour Party post coming out defending the council for. Yeah. So what's wrong with that? Healthy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Healthy. No, and if it's pointy, well, it's only pointy because it's pointy. I've been there. I see it. I see there'll be questions on Facebook saying, that new footpath you put in, it's just too narrow. Oh no, waste of time, waste of money. And I go,
yes, I remember that.
Yeah, but that's right. We spent 40 grand on that, so someone, they're fully entitled to be critical of it. So it's the same. But take it all the way back to brass tacks. I met with someone last night who wants to stand for election in a forthcoming by-election. They received the nomination pack, and God, I don't know. By the time it was printed out, 30 pages, certainly 20 pages. Couldn't make head or tail of it. 3 forms. That's all they needed. 3 forms. Pulled out the 3 forms. Fill in this. Don't bother with that. This, that. This means that. Done. That nomination pack now will that'll be completed. It'll be compliant, and if they presumably they decide to go ahead with it, there'll be a legitimate candidate there. That's really valuable service, I think, because no one else is really helping you with that. And then if they want to put a flyer out, there'll be support to say, well, this is legal. You shouldn't say that. Actually, make sure this imprint's on there. What's an imprint? It's one of these. Did you know you can get the electoral register? All of these things. I mean, you wouldn't know that, I don't think, unless you were very well researched. And I think that's an extremely valuable service. And have we deviated? That's the other question. Have we deviated away from those first aims? Maybe on occasion. I think maybe there has been occasion, and I think some people were associated with this in the beginning and no longer associated with it, and I think that's a crying shame. The people I respect greatly are not. And are there people sometimes who say a bit, this is something a bit spicy? Yeah, maybe. But are we dealing with, everyone's entitled. Everyone is entitled to say what they want. We know that's legal and inoffensive, and everyone is frankly entitled to make an idiot of themselves. So should they choose, all I would say is I don't want racists, and I don't want bigots, and I don't want anything along those lines, really. As long as people are well motivated and act within the law and are respectful to a point, but not respectful regardless of people's failings, then carry on and let the electorate decide whether they like that or not.
Yeah, it's not a case of, if you're BCI, you hate all party councillors or party members. Not in the slightest, is it? There are lots of councillors that I've met, both community and county, part of parties that I think are fantastic councillors and are trying to do the best for their constituents. But you do get the criticism, you're BCI, you just hate parties.
Oh, well, I think, it's like, you're not going to get rid of parties. And again, it's undemocratic. It's undemocratic, yeah? So I think the ideal situation is that every councillor should be independent. But if you passed a law saying that every councillor should be independent, for example, that would be deeply undemocratic. Because if someone wants to be a member of a party, well, it's their right. And if people want to vote for that person, it's their right. I just don't think it's healthy when, there's an assumption that because you're a member of the party, you will then get in because it's a safe seat. You're there, you're in that group, and I don't think democracy is well served by that. It's as simple as that. I think the other misconception is that, BCI are anti-Labour. Well, yeah, I get why that's seen. But if a single party, which in this instance is the Labour Party, is the opposition and has run that council in its current form for 21 out of 25 years, well, you're not going to be anti the people who aren't running it, are you? Do you know what I mean? If you've got problems with an organisation that's been run by a certain party or political grouping, then well, yeah, you're going to be challenging them. It doesn't mean you're pro-conservative or pro-UKIP or is that still a thing? Or Brexit Party, is that still a thing? It doesn't mean that. It just means that you are highlighting the failings of a organisation that has been run by a certain party for so long. As simple as that. No more, no less. Doesn't mean we don't like Corbyn or we prefer Keir Starmer or we all like Boris. It doesn't mean that at all.
No, well, we've not just been accused. BCI haven't been just accused of anti-Labour, but also anti-Conservatives as well for certain things. But when we've seen certain supporting of policies that we don't agree with, and it's not just us. If it was just individually me, I hated what BCBC does, or the Labour Council, or a Conservative-led council, or whatever. If it was just me on my own, it would be just my voice. But it's not just me. There are residents who don't want to get involved. Who's going to speak for them? Because if it's a normal councillor, or who has been there before unchallenged and still there unchallenged, not going to listen to them if they don't want things.
I'm mindful of time, but as you said, who is challenging the waste contract if it's not, and who is challenging the when a couple of years ago when we were on about all the sports fields were put into the draft as candidate sites for the LDP. Who highlighted that? The Conservatives didn't highlight it. No one else highlighted it, and had those not been highlighted, would they still be in there? I think there's an important role there, and I think the Bridgend County Independence Group offers a platform and a vehicle for those things to be highlighted. And if you don't like, if you can't stand by the decisions and the policies that you're enacting, in this case, not just proposing, then maybe you're in the wrong business, frankly. Go and do something else. If you're putting something forward which will materially change someone's life, and you can't defend that, well, that's tough, isn't it?
Anyway, I think we should call it there, because I think we've been on for an hour and 45 minutes now.
Have I beaten Alex? That's the important thing.
You've beaten Alex. You've massively beaten him.
Take it out. Take it out in the edit. Take it out in the edit. Yeah.
I can't. I'm not sure how to do editing at the moment.
Oh, well, there we go.
That's why we haven't got your going for gold clip to go in there.
No, it's a shame we've run out of time. That's all I'll say.
When we had a young Martin on going for gold many years ago.
Yeah. European quiz. How was it described? Yeah, but we won't talk about that.
Okay, well, I'll say thank you everyone for watching, and thank you, Councillor Williams. I will hope to speak to your wife one day soon, but I'm going to try and go around to other councils for now. And somebody without the last name Williams for once.
Yeah, that did cross my mind.
A change.
No, look, Luke. I mean, genuinely, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I would urge everyone who you ask to consider doing this, because no one else is doing this. There's no one else doing this sort of thing locally. I think it's really important that people get to know those who represent them and may seek to represent them again after May next year. And keep up the good work.
Thank you. And goodbye, everybody, and see you again soon.